Hello everybody and welcome to MSVT Racing and welcome back to the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. We've already had 5 rounds this season and all of that racing action, every single overtake, every single move that we've seen all adds up to tonight. We are here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for round 6, 60 minutes of racing on the way, and joining me, much like the first round of the season, for the final round of the season in the commentary box, Mr. Mark Werrell.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. It's wonderful to be back in the virtual commentary box covering what has been an absolutely brilliant season of EnduroKA Winter Sim Sports Series. This excited me when I first heard about it, and then when I was asked to commentate on it, I'd also had the opportunity to race at the Snetterton round. It's just been brilliant. And even those that I've not been able to commentate at or race at, I have watched from the sidelines, rest assured. The racing has been superb.
It's been a pleasure to watch and an even bigger pleasure to commentate on, and it's been a very busy season, not only for the drivers but for all the work that goes on in the background, all of the admin, everything like that. And our director Dan, wow, I don't know how he's lasted this long, but he is still here. So you can see there we are here for the final round, the 18th of March, a 60-minute race on the way. Everything kicked off at Donington Park, and it only really got closer from there because Donington Park, 60 minutes, it set the tone. 60 minutes went very quickly. There was lots of overtaking, little bits of contact, late moves, different strategy, and then from there, it just all stayed the same. There was constant action. We had no idea where to look, and I'm so glad it stayed the same right the way up until the final round here at Laguna Seca. We also have a few sponsors on board. Positive Perception, who have produced all of the brilliant liveries that you'll see on the circuit this evening. They've worked really hard to get them all out, and they've done a terrific job. They all look really good. And if you are going to get a livery designed, like you can see on screen now, they did design the actual Grid Finder EnduroKA car. You can get one, and instead of the usual £150, you can get an EnduroKA special £100. You can get a really nice livery made by Positive Perception. Also, we have Turn 7 on board, who have come on board throughout the season and have really helped. We had an interview with Callum McDougall at Snetterton, or just over a month ago, and you can get a 10% competitor discount on all of the racewear and teamwear that they provide. And they're also catering specialists, so they know what they're doing in that department. And of course, a massive thank you to Burton Power and Grid Finder as well, for allowing us to get them on board, and MSVT Racing as well, everybody in the background. We've got some prizes as well. Everyone's always interested in the prizes, Mark. And what is it, the top 6 this evening can all still change what's going to happen with these prizes. So you can get the top 3 drivers from the champion, or from this series, will win a fully paid ARDS racing license. So if you don't know what that is, it's a bit like your road license, but this is your racing license. So this is your card to get you out onto circuit and race in real life. And some of the drivers on circuit this evening will already have one. What's even better, you can give it to a friend or a family member, anything like that. So that means you can make use of the EnduroKA Winter Sim series, and even more so this year, the EnduroKA series itself, because entries have now opened. So there's lots more, not only EnduroKA Winter Sim series action this evening, but a lot more EnduroKA action this season. And the calendar's been confirmed for that one, I believe, as well.
It has, yeah. We're racing virtually for the first time at Laguna Seca here, but in a month's time, for the first time ever in real life, EnduroKA will go to Silverstone on the 16th of April for a 5-hour race there. That kicks off their championship season. Then they'll go to Cadwell Park for a 6-hour race. In June, they go on to Donington Park, 16th of July, a 5-hour race. The longest race of the season, which is what I should be competing at as well, will be the 12 Hours to Norfolk at Snetterton on the 5th and the 6th of August. And then the final 2 races, Alton Park on the 30th of September. And the traditional end of season for EnduroKA, badged as the IndyCar, the IndyKA 500-minute race at Brands Hatch on the 28th and 29th of October. So lots to look forward to in real life, lots still to look forward to this evening in the final round of the EnduroKA Winter Sim Sports Series. And as you alluded to, Jack, those prizes, the top 3 in the championship will win at the ARDS test. Mathematically, there are 7 drivers that could still feature in the top 3 at the end of the season. But sadly, one of those, Joe Kingston Lee, is not racing this evening. So it looks as though only 6 of the drivers entered can now scoop up what would be those top 3 prizes mathematically.
Yeah, but there's still lots of chopping and changing that can also take place in the mid pack. So you might not be fighting for the championship, the top 3, or even the top 10, but there could be little battles going on that we don't know about. That can all just be talk in the paddock. So there's lots of definitely positions to be decided this evening, whether it could just be bragging rights or it could be prizes as well. So lots to look forward to. Speaking of the championship, let's have a look at how the top 5 come into the final round here at Laguna Seca. Bobby Simmons on 118 points at the top of the championship, 13 points ahead of Tom O'Farrell. Both of those drivers winning 2 races so far this season. Bobby Simmons, the more consistent, however. He's appeared on the podium, 4 times now. So very consistent is Bobby Simmons, clawing all of those points. Colin Dunn enters Laguna Seca in 3rd place on the championship, 99 points. That's 19 points behind Bobby Simmons. Let me get back to Jack Mace, who's been there or thereabouts. He's been very quick. He's had some some mixed qualifying results, but his race results very consistent. 3rd at Donington, 2nd at Silverstone, 3rd at Snetterton, 4th at Alton. Unfortunately, we didn't see him at Brands Hatch, but if he had appeared, God knows where this championship could have been, because Jack could have fired himself into the top 2. Maybe, you never know, even leading the championship, God forbid. There's so many different things that can change. And then James Black rounds out your top 5 on 92 points, but only 4 of those 5 drivers are in with a chance of winning the championship.
Yeah, James Black, even if he wins and sets fastest lap, he would only end up on 118 points, whereas already on 118 and with 2 race wins is Bobby Simmons. So even if James Black wins and sets fastest lap, he'd be tied for points with Bobby Simmons. If Bobby Simmons didn't score, Bobby Simmons would win on the countback because he's got 2 race wins. That's the way it would work. So mathematically, yeah, he's out of the running. Jack Mace did appear at Brands, actually. Jack, he finished in 7th position. Had a poorer result because he was involved in a bit of a tangle, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's the one. I'm getting himself confused with James Black. He's had some very consistent results there, 4th, but didn't interfere at Brands Hatch. That's who I'm thinking of. We've spoken a lot about Bobby Simmons there. We've got him in as a guest this evening, haven't we? So let's have a quick word with Bobby Simmons. So welcome to the commentary box, Bobby Simmons. How are you?
I'm good, Jack. You?
Yeah, not too bad at all. It's great, obviously, to have you in for an interview prior to the final round of the season. There's 13 points separating yourself and Tom O'Farrell, so you've been there or thereabouts all season, very consistent, and you found yourself at the pointy end of the order. Was that something you were expecting?
I definitely wasn't expecting anything coming into this series, but the position I'm in is more than, it's amazing for where I am. So coming out of this race would be top 5. Hopefully that would give me a good, no accidents happening then, and then just on hopefully get the championship then, because I'm sure Tom will win the race because he's amazing.
Well, we've got all that to look forward to, so it's really interesting to see all the different dynamics slowly playing out, especially now. Is obviously finishing that top 5, but coming into this season, obviously it was a new mod on circuits that the EnduroKA series isn't exactly a stranger to, with a capacity grid as well. But tonight we're at a unique circuit. We're at Laguna Seca. Talk me through your thoughts with that one.
Yeah, very, very. It feels like a very dusty circuit, although you can. I guess a set of course can simulate that because it's a very dusty circuit in real life. So it's nice to have that. It's nice to see the mod replicating this. It's a very flowing circuit, which is the KAs are used to, with Donington, the Craner Curves, Silverstone, which the real KAs will be going to in just over a month's time, and it's the corkscrew. It's very, very hard corner in these cars. Overall, it's quite a decent circuit, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, it's sounding like it's going to be an exciting night. There's definitely lots to look forward to, and I think it's not the lack of runoff, but it's literally from paint to gravel. So I'd imagine it will be a tricky night for some. And of course, we've got to ask that question. This is season 1. If season 2 theoretically were to happen, something you're interested in?
I'm thinking of having the number 1 in my car, so I would definitely be into it. Yeah.
Well, all that is to come. Best of luck in your ventures, hopefully to win the championship this evening. Before we let you go, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
I'd like to thank all the boys at Mathwell. That's Rory, Liam, David, Rachel, and James, and Peter, who asked for a special shout out. So there you go, Peter. My mum and my dad for just being supportive. You know, like they've turned the Wi-Fi off on their phones, so the internet's good for me. My nan Linda for watching every race and giving me all the support, and my girlfriend for letting me have all the time I can off to do this.
Terrific. Well, best of luck once again, Bobby, and hopefully we'll speak to you towards the end of the race.
Yeah, hopefully so. See you then.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye. So great to chat with Bobby Simmons, and it's just another little insight that we get on sort of some of the drivers coming into the round. And it's the last round of the season. Some of them may not be that fussed about scoring points, and they can just go out and enjoy themselves. And that's one thing I'm sure you could ask all of the drivers, no matter where they finish at the end of this evening. If you ask them how much fun have they had this season, they'd struggle to put it into words, because I'm sure, as you'd agree, and like you've said on a number of occasions, the first thing you do when you get out of racing in EnduroKA is smile.
Yeah, absolutely. They are just a hoot to drive, brilliant little cars to drive, and having raced other similar kind of cars, low-powered cars that are involved in endurance races, they're a very neutral car. So for a novice coming in, great way to go racing for the first time ever.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that I'm sure we will see a lot more of in the future from MSV and MSV. But Tom O'Farrell has put it on pole position. He was dubbed for the win by Bobby Simmons. That will come in 60 minutes time, or it'll be decided in 60 minutes time, I should say. Tom O'Farrell for 2F Media Production has put his EnduroKA on pole with a 1 minute 56.763. JJ Hind lines up alongside. The second row of the grid is championship hopeful Bobby Simmons. Peter Jones just sat behind. The third row of the grid made up of Jack Mason, Colin Dunn. That is a very busy row. We'll look forward to seeing what happens from row 3 of the grid. Row 4, James Black and Nick Creed. Then it's James Wakefield and Tim Parsons rounding out your top 10 starters. Mark Cockerton starts 11th with Alex Saville starting in 12th. Andrew Greer-Hardy lines up in 13th place with Jack Bedding alongside. Nathan Down and David Edwards on row number 13 of the grid. And I've got a feeling that is our final row as well. So not the capacity grid that we're used to seeing, but I don't think that'll take away from the racing, because as we've spoken about a little bit before the race, Mark, it's a unique circuit and quite a challenging one, isn't it?
It's a very challenging circuit, Laguna Seca. Originally, the reason that this circuit came about is that they used to race on public roads around Pebble Beach, but in the 1956, all of that on racing on public roads was abandoned on safety grounds. So this circuit appeared in 1957 for the first time, and has largely remained unchanged since. The major change came in the latter part of the 1980s, where you'd go down through turn 1 and turn 2 to the Andretti hairpin. But that's where the circuit has been reprofiled in 1988. It used to be a very fast left kink at turn 2 that would bring you to turn 5. So now it's a hairpin left at turn 2, through the right-handers at 3 and 4. And that's the new section that was built in 1988. But other than that, yes, there's been a few tweaks, but the circuit has largely remained unchanged since 1957, other than that section. And amazingly, Jack, it's the gradient that we all talk about. So you get to the corkscrew, turn 8, and between turn 8 and turn 8A, so into the corkscrew and out of the corkscrew, it drops a total of 59 feet between those two elements. And that's the equivalent of 5.5 stories. If you then get to turn 9, it drops another 109 feet. So between turn 8 and turn 9, it drops 10 stories in terms of height. Staggering, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you could say, what's it like dropping an EnduroKA from 10 stories high? And I'm sure we'll find out, because it will seem like a long way. Tiny cars, that's a big old drop for little KAs, but it's not just one KA that you're dropping. It's 16 all at the same time, all on the first lap with a championship fight. So there's going to be, I'm sure, plenty to talk about. Let's go with in the opening stages.
Well, I gather Gary Preble might have loaded into the server as well, so we might need to keep an eye on a couple of cars that probably didn't set a qualifying time, but might be joining the grid at the back. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, lots and lots to look forward to. It's going to be a very busy race, around about 20 seconds until we go racing here at Laguna Seca. You can see the lights coming up on the screen now, so the drivers making sure that they're all set and ready. Strategy, something to think about as well. A mandatory pit stop, so no tyres, but definitely a little bit of fuel to get you to the end of the race. 6 lights on, the revs rise and they go out now, and we go racing for the final time in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. It's a great start from Tom O'Farrell. JJ Hind just cuts in behind. Bobby Simmons manages to hold on to what is third place for the moment. Down into turn 1, Jack Mace is side by side. I think that's Colin Dunn or Peter Jones. In towards the Andretti hairpin we go. And it looks like Tom O'Farrell will hold on to that lead with JJ Hind and Bobby Simmons just playing it nice and safe. That's a great move all the way around the outside from Peter Jones. He's promoted himself up into 4th place. He's trying to make that 3rd. Looking at Jack Mace now, he's got James Black and Colin Dunn all over his tail, and that's a car heading towards the gravel. Was that James Black? Yes, it was James Black on the exit of turn 4. Or turn 3, pardon me, bouncing through the gravel, but for the moment, the top 5 remain unchanged.
Yeah, not the only one to go through the gravel, because James Wakefield takes a wild ride through the gravel. That will drop him down through the order in these cars, which is all about momentum. They've got to keep cracking on. I also noticed that Jamie Peters-Ennis, who also did not set a qualifying time, now at the wheel of the Rainbow Warrior almost, is making his way up through the order. Side by side, he goes with James Wakefield. Then there's contact. James Wakefield gets into the side of the car of, now was that Tim Parsons he got into the side of, or was that David Evans? Couldn't quite tell from there, but already we can see a little bumping and boring further back. Bobby Simmons in 3rd place. He's the man we need to keep an eye on. As long as he finishes inside the top 13, unless Tom Farrell wins this race and sets the fastest lap, then that purple car with the yellow bumpers, Bobby Simmons, would be the champion. So it's all about him just making sure he stays out of trouble, and if he finishes in the top 10, he's more than on the way to the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. He can just drive his own race, not worry about what's going on around him, and that could almost put him in a better situation than he would have been anyway, because if you're not too worried about pushing too hard, you tend to drive nice and smooth, and we all know smooth is fast, so you never know. We could see quite an impressive performance from Bobby Simmons, even when he's openly said he's just happy to finish sort of top 5, and he only needs to finish top 13, of course, if Tom O'Farrell doesn't set the fastest lap, but at the moment he's going the right way about it. Tom O'Farrell leading the race. He's got 6 tenths back to JJ Hind. Then we get back to Bobby Simmons and Peter Jones. It was Tim Parsons that got collected on the first lap, and he's in a little battle of himself towards the tail end of the order. There is Mark Cockerton down into turn 1, but much later on the brakes from James Black. Just about gets it slowed down. Can he get it turned and fired off the corner? Yes, he can. Great defence from James Black. He saw the nose of the car dive down as he was desperately trying to get the car slowed down, and then trying to squeeze his way up the inside. There is Nick Green, a little bit of door-to-door contact between them both, and he can't quite pull it off. Mark Cockerton, even after contact, does remain in front.
Yeah, frustration for James Black, really. Mathematically, he's still in a shout for the championship, but he would have to win this race, James Black. If he doesn't win it, he's not going to be the champion. But he will be focused on the fact that as long as he still gets a good result, he could be inside the top 3. He could still pick up that ARDS licence, fully paid licence for the top 3 in this championship. So Tom O'Farrell leads JJ Hind from Bobby Simmons. Then it's the number 25 car, which is in the hand of Peter Jones. He's pushing hard to try and keep Jack Mace behind him. Of course, Jack Mace lies 4th in the championship coming into this weekend as well. He'll want to go beautifully well. There's Rhys Atkin there, who is pushing hard. He is right on the coattails of Nick Creed. Those two going pretty much wheel to wheel now as they head up the circuit and in towards the kick and turn number 7 that brings them up towards the corkscrew.
Yeah, so in towards the corkscrew once again for the 2nd time, and that's Jack Bedding just doing everything he can, trying to not let Jamie Peters-Ennis by. It's been fairly consistent from Jamie Peters-Ennis throughout the season, and at the moment he's down in 12th place, desperately trying to work his way through and past 411s, but can't quite get the move done as of yet. Tom O'Farrell, impressive start to the race, 7 tenths clear. It's popped up to a second a couple of times. Is Jamie Peters-Ennis going to have a look? It's late. That's a very, very late move on the brakes, almost a bit of contact, but that was room given by Jack Bedding. Tom O'Farrell with the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 58.160. So at the moment, whilst he's doing everything he can to become provisional champion, of course, at the moment Bobby Simmons is still well within. He's already got a hand on that trophy. He's almost got 2 at this point. He's sat there in 3rd place, just doing everything he needs to do, driving his own race. But once again, as per every single round we go to, it's the mid-pack. That is where we need to be looking. That is where all the racing is happening.
And the great thing is, in that mid-pack are cars that did not set qualifying times and are working their way through the order. So Gary Preble, we didn't think was racing tonight. He did log into the server, and he's now up to 9th position, the man who has already won races so far this year. And Jamie Peters-Ennis, another front runner, but hasn't had a win so far this season off the back of the grid, is now up into 12th position at the wheel of his car. So those are also cars that we need to try and keep an eye on. Here we go, side by side. This is Andrew Greer-Hardy, who is busy fighting away. He's trying to work his way through and ahead of Nathan Down, but Nathan Down having none of it. The purple car with its white flashes still remains ahead. So Andrew Greer-Hardy, who races in the KAs for real, is for the moment rather frustratingly bottled up behind him in 15th position and isn't really making inroads as they head through the kink at turn number 6 and what is called the rail straight in towards turn 7 and the corkscrew.
Yeah, down the corkscrew once again. You can see the nose of the car disappearing into the ground. That's just how violent the descent is through the corkscrew. Gary Preble up into 8th place now. He's managed to get in front of Mark Cockerton, and he's pushing forward. He's not just got in front; he's already built up half a second over that now, in towards the final corner at turn 11. Towards the start-finish line we will go once again. Tom O'Farrell, another fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 56.497, so continuing to push ever harder. 1.5 seconds is the gap back to JJ Hind in second place at the moment. Peter Jones closing up on the tail of Bobby Simmons, half a second separating the pair of them, 3/10 now, but Bobby Simmons will be well aware that he does not need to fight that battle, and he can let Peter Jones through if he so wishes. He can just, we will say it all night, he can just drive his own race. He really doesn't need to worry about battling anybody too hard. There is Peter Jones heading through turn 3 up towards turn 4. And the body language of that car shows that he is pushing hard, and he will very soon be right on the rear bumper of Bobby Simmons. Jack Mace, somewhat unlike Jack Mace this evening, he's got 2.1 seconds to the gap to the next car in 4th place. He's somewhat off the pace, maybe, or maybe it's just the circuit. It doesn't seem like he's pushing as hard, and maybe that is exactly what he's doing. He's well aware it's the final round of the season, and he just wants to finish and get a good haul of points.
Yeah, Jack Mace has been consistent this season. He's only featured on the podium once, so he's had a third, he's had a couple of 7th, he's had an 8th and 11th place as his best so far this season. So to the left of your screens, you can see there the battle that's going on. Nick Creed coming under pressure from Mark Cockerton that sits directly behind him. We ride on board with Mark Cockerton as he tries to draw himself alongside at the wheel of the car, but he's not going to be able to do it as they head in towards the braking area at turn 8 and turn 9. The corkscrew, you can see even on the sim just how much that gradient descends through turn 8 and turn 8A and down in towards turn 9. Good little battle still going on, but Mark Cockerton has not as yet been able to feed his way up into 9th position and ahead of Nick Creed, who is driving beautifully well. We talk about Jack consistency winning championships, and Bobby Simmons is very much the case in point of that. You said he's had 2 wins, he's been on the podium in 4 races so far, but he's finished in the top 6 in every race so far. No other driver has done that.
Yeah, he's finished in the top 6 in every race, and the only place he hasn't finished is 5th. So he's looking incredibly consistent, and that is exactly all he's done all season. He's just made sure he puts in a good banker lap in qualifying and then chip away at that, and if he gets to the end of qualifying and he's not on pole, he knows full well he can attack the race for the whole 60 minutes. He doesn't need to really push really early on in the race and destroy the tyres. Of course, tyre degradation is something that's been a problem for a few of the drivers at a few of the circuits, but Bobby Simmons has just found that nice bit between pushing hard enough to make up time and positions, but not pushing too hard to then induce the mistakes and slowly start to lose out on that tyre performance. And that's exactly what you need to do. I've just had a quick look over at the current championship standings. Jack Mace, if everything were to finish as it is, Jack Mace would still be a point behind Colin Dunn, which means Colin Dunn would win his fully funded ARDS licence post-race procedures and everything like that, if anything were to change. But at the moment, Jack Mace and Colin Dunn, if you look at that, Jack Mace makes up 1 more place. He will be tied on points with Colin Dunn, which means I don't know what happens in that situation. Who gets the ARDS licence? Who will get to go racing this season?
If Jack Mace were to finish in 4th place, that would put him on 116 points. Colin Dunn would finish in 6th position. That would put him on 119 points. So Colin Dunn at that scenario would still be ahead, actually. So Colin Dunn would need to lose a couple of places, and Jack Mace would still need to gain a couple for them to be equal on points.
I keep looking over at the standings and see Bobby Simmons 24 points for 2nd place. So I was thinking it's down 1 each one, but it turns out he got the fastest lap in that round.
Fastest lap, Alton Park, he got fastest lap, yeah.
So it shows there's so many different things that you can do to just get ahead in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. Tom O'Farrell's still continuing to lap with quite a healthy margin, 3.3 seconds. Now looking back at Jack Bedding, that is Jamie Peters-Ennis now in front in 11th place, 3.1 seconds up the road to Mark Hockerton before he can start thinking about making any more inroads for the top 10. But Tom O'Farrell, 3.4 seconds now, doing everything he needs to do. JJ Hind in second place, only about a second in front of Bobby Simmons. Go on, Mark.
And no, I'm just saying Tom O'Farrell absolutely doing everything that he needs to do, because he's also at this stage set the fastest lap of the race at 1 minute 57.497. And that is about half a second quicker than anybody has gone in the race. So Tom O'Farrell ideally needs to win and set the fastest lap to get that extra point, because they could all be vitally important, subject to, of course, where Bobby Simmons finishes. So remember, for Tom O'Farrell to be the champion, he would need to win and set fastest lap and hope that Bobby Simmons finishes 13th or lower. That's the only scenario that could exist, really.
Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about almost all evening after covering, I covered Silverstone, of course. We're on the Silverstone National layout. We went to Silverstone in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series before the actual EnduroKA Series has gone there. You could probably say the same for Laguna Seca, but I don't think it needs to be said. Silverstone, he finished in 16th place, did Tom O'Farrell. So you've got to be thinking, but what if he hadn't had that that slightly misfortunate round at Silverstone, where would we be in the championship? And I'd imagine probably a slightly different situation, but just as close on circuit. Everything would be sort of a carbon copy, but it would all be for different points, and they could be tied. You have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue he lost at least 10 points at Silverstone, which would have put them absolutely on a par with each other. And Tom O'Farrell, there's only one round so far, he has not set the fastest lap, and that was at Alton Park where Bobby Simmons set it. So he has been arguably in race conditions the fastest driver out there, albeit hasn't quite had the result. Amazingly, and this keeps happening every single round, we are already nearly 25% through this race, so just under 48 minutes of the race to go. We ride on board with Tom O'Farrell leading the way at this stage by amazingly 4.2 seconds from JJ Hind, who's there in second place. JJ we saw out for the first time at Brands Hatch last time out, and what a debut he made, Jack, because he finished in 4th position overall, did JJ Hind.
Yeah, that's definitely a debut you will want. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So fair play to JJ Hind in what is, I've got to say, an incredibly competitive grid. There's a whole range of sort of experience and speed and everything like that up and down the order. But no matter who you are, no matter your experience, whether this is your first sim racing series or your 100th, that was very close between James Black and Colin Dunn. A little bit of contact, very well held from James Black. But going back to my previous point, if you've got no experience or stacks of experience, you won't be bored. You will have someone to race with, and that's just singing true here. This battle is absolutely brilliant. Colin Dunn and James Black. So at the moment, James Black is just about in front, but all of this battling could bring, guess who? Gary Preble into the mix from the very back of the order up into 8th place, and now closing up on 2 more cars. So you never know, he could be in 6th come the end of the next lap.
Yeah, Preble the Rebel is on his way, isn't he? A man who we haven't seen at every round, but when he's been out, he's claimed to win. He's finished 2nd. He finished 9th at Alton Park, but he's missed 2 rounds. He's missed Silverstone and he missed Brands Hatch, so he's not really in the reckoning in terms of the championship, Gary Preble. But without question, he is arguably one of the quickest drivers that we've got in the field, and is a hugely experienced racer in real life as well, whether it be Castle Combe, his local circuit where he's been a multiple champion there over the years, or whether it be in the Classic Touring Car Club in which he races nowadays. And he'll actually be out racing for real, I think, next weekend at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit there in Northamptonshire. Jack Mace has just popped in a quick lap as well, hasn't he? So Jack Mace has just put in one of his quickest laps of the race so far, but that is still about 1.4 seconds shy of the fastest lap of the race. So Colin Dunn, here he comes onto the brakes, still trying to hunt down the car of James Black ahead of him, whilst also being rather conscious that Gary Preble is closing, ever closing. Further down through the order, Andrew Greer-Hardy is still fighting away with Nathan Down. He is ahead of him now, though. Last time we picked up on that, the Lotus Tribute livery was behind, so he's finally gained a place as Andrew Greer-Hardy in the green car with the yellow stripe down the centre. But look at the cars queuing up behind. Nathan Down, James Wakefield, and off the back of the grid, Jamie Peters-Ennis. That is going to be 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a quick look over and thinking Jamie Peters-Ennis, he's somewhat out of position compared to where we saw him earlier on in the race. That's because he's already been into the pit lane. We've seen him make that strategy call earlier on in the season. I can't exactly remember where it was. It could have been Alton Park. We saw him dive in early.
Snetterton, he pitted early.
Yes, Snetterton was the yeah. You are 100% right with that one, because we were watching the battle for the lead at that time. So it shows how important strategy could be. He did eventually win that race on the road, albeit turned over at a later date. But Jamie Peters-Ennis in the pit lane was not being slowed down, hindered maybe is the right word, by Nathan Down and James Wakefield, but already up into 14th place and looking to make that strategy work once again here at Laguna Seca. And that lead margin still hovering around 4.2 seconds, but to put that into perspective, that's what say if we're on the 7th lap now and we've completed 6, almost 7, that's what, 3/4 of a second, 7/10, 6/10 a lap quicker than anybody else.
I was just busy giggling at the turning oversteer that Jamie Peters-Ennis got at turn number 8 there. He had to shortcut turn 8A. Now, you can have a few cuts. If you cut the corner and improve your lap time, you will potentially get a penalty if you keep doing it consistently. But if his lap time's a little bit slower, he might get away with that particular one. So for Jamie Peters-Ennis, he's got to keep cracking on in reality. Now, if you've not seen EnduroKA Winter SimSport Series in the past, there is a mandatory pit stop. That's what Jamie Peters-Ennis has already done. You have to take that mandatory pit stop after the 10th minute of the race and before the 50th minute of the race. So it's a large pit stop window, and subject to the strategy that you set, you can come in, you potentially could put no fuel in and no tyre change, but in terms of the way the server works, it's always best just to stick a litre of fuel in, even if you don't want to do anything. So all of the cars at some point, Jack, have to come in, don't they?
Yeah, it's one of those things that you think as a driver, oh, I've got to go in, I've got to lose all of that time, but everybody's got to do it, irrespective of who you are. But it's then, how much fuel do you dare take? Do you take more than you need and definitely get to the end so you can push as hard as you like, or do you take a little bit less, spend less time in the pit lane, but then have to do a bit of fuel saving? It's all that weighing up and strategy and things that EnduroKA, I don't want to say doesn't deserve, but not something that you would tend to see if you were to jump in a simulator, see an EnduroKA and think, whatever, we'll put enough fuel in, we'll go. There's proper strategy going into this. The drivers really do think about it, and you always see the practice sessions populated with the drivers turning laps, making sure that they've got everything nailed down to a T, and whether it be sharing information about brake pressures, brake bias, tyre pressures, potentially everything like that. It's had a lot of thought go into it, and bearing in mind this is the first season, wow, great work.
Yeah, no, hats off to Stuart Garland and Toby Owen. Toby Owen from Gridfinder, Stuart Garland, the man behind MSVT Racing, for agreeing to do this, because it has been enormously well received. And yes, we've seen a bit of drop off in numbers. That's something that they will want to address in the future. But the racing, week in, week out, or fortnight in, fortnight out, has been absolutely fantastic. Nick Creed with his hands full. He sits there in 9th place. We're looking out of his windscreen at Colin Dunn that lies ahead. Colin Dunn is a little bit too far ahead for Nick Creed to try anything, so heading towards the braking area for the Andretti hairpin. So he's going to sit behind, knock it down a gear. Car ahead just gets a little bit sideways there. You can see Colin Dunn just wagging the tail of the KA as he turned his way through turn 2, and then the speeds build as they head up into the right-hander at turn number 3. Use all of the curb on the inside, let the car run wide onto the outside. You might go up a gear again before you head in towards turn 4 again. All about momentum. You can see another gear there, and then as they head round through turn 4, absolutely nail the apex, carry all of that speed down into the braking area for turn number 5.
Yeah, and then it can all change again going up the hill. It's all about the run you get through here. Later on the brakes is Nick Creed, but then a flick of oversteer. You lose all that momentum and you think, oh, it's only a couple of miles an hour. Yes, but you've then got to climb up the hill on towards the on towards the Rahal Straight. So your run out of turn 5 massively impedes your run pretty much until the corkscrew at that point. But then you've got a bit of draft assistance. There was a car, I've got a feeling that was just the lapped car letting the other car by. That was David Edwards in 19th place, but then once again that draft assistance came in. Nick Creed has once again closed up to the tail of Colin Dunn. Nothing really to pick between the pair of them. Mark Cockerton has got the best seats in the house watching this. He'll be rubbing his hands together thinking, please come together or slow each other down a bit more, because I want part of that. And just to draw your attention, 5.2 seconds is now the lead margin.
Yeah, you're right. That was David Edwards that moved out of the way. He's worth mentioning because I don't think we've seen David out so far this season. He's taken over the car that's been raced by Callum Perfect for M&D Racing so far this year. But Callum can't race tonight. He's been racing at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit for real today. So that's why Callum Perfect isn't out over the course of this one. So Andrew Greer-Hardy still pressing on in 15th position, as I mentioned earlier, on one of many drivers, not exclusively, but a lot of drivers that have raced KAs both in the sim over this winter and in real life as well. So Andrew Greer-Hardy will be looking forward to the Silverstone round on the national circuit when we get the proper season off and underway in about 4 weeks' time. He still hasn't pulled that far away though from Nathan Down. Those two have been pretty evenly matched over the course of the first 20 minutes of the race. Little toot on the horn there as they come over the start-finish line. And Andrew Greer-Hardy will not really be looking out of his mirror at what's going on behind him, Nathan Down. He'll be focused on trying to close in on James Wakefield that lies ahead. Back to Nick Creed, he's still there in 9th place. He's still giving Colin Dunn a thing or two to think about. We saw a little bit of a touch between the pair of them earlier on. They're going to go side by side this time, up in towards the braking area for turn number 5. Nick Creed on the outside line, Colin Dunn's got the inside line. He'll hang on to the place.
Yeah, a great look back here from Colin Dunn. You can see just how close Nick Creed is. He's getting closer and closer and closer. A KA isn't something I thought would look mean, but with the brilliantly prepared livery by Positive Perception on Nick Creed's car, that car does actually look quite scary, and that's something I'm sure Colin did say. He said, I made your livery calm down, like when you owe me a position at least. And at this point, I don't think Colin Dunn is going to care, because later on the brakes, he still holds the inside almost side by side through the corkscrew. And what did I say a couple of laps ago? Mark Cockerton is only going to get closer, and he is there now. There's a second separating all three cars. Colin Dunn in 8th, Nick Creed in 9th, Mark Cockerton in 10th place. The lead gap is now up to 6.1 seconds. So Tom O'Farrell is driving, as far as he's concerned, and I'm sure anybody else, a perfect race. This is all he needs to do in the hopes of holding on to a championship advantage. But at the moment, Bobby Simmons still sat there in 3rd place, and quite comfortably as well. These three cars crossing the line now, nose to tail, nothing to pick between the pair of them. At the moment, Colin Dunn has made the most of what's happened behind him, because Nick Creed, maybe a look in his mirror, slightly defensive in towards the final corner with Mark Cockerton. He's trying to escape now. Mark Cockerton throws the car to the outside. Later on the brakes, will he be? Yes. Can he carry the momentum, however? It looks like he's going to give it a go. No, he just has to dab the brakes mid-corner to tuck the nose back in, and the three remain as they are.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at what the points might look like as well. So Colin Dunn desperately needs to make sure he doesn't drop any further positions. So at the moment he's in 8th place. That would net him 117 points at the end of the championship season. Jack Mace is 5th place though, and ahead of him at the moment. So Jack Mace would be on 115 points at the end of the season. And James Black rather, is running in 6th position. James Black would be on 112 points if they all stayed where they were. So unbelievably close, potentially, for that final prize of the ARTS licence.
So there's still so much up for grabs, and I can't believe we're already there. We're only, what, 6.5 minutes away from halfway through this race. It goes way, way too quickly. But I'm sure we'll have plenty of action in the final 36 minutes of this race. Lead gap up to 6.6 seconds now. Bobby Simmons still sat there in 3rd place. Nathan Down manages to get past Andrew Greer-Hardy a little bit further down the order. Jamie Petersen is still sat there in 13th place, one of the first drivers to pit. Gary Preble up into 7th place, and is an equidistantly spread between himself, James Black and Jack Mace. So 7th, 6th and 5th, not too much to pick between the pair of them, but you go a couple of positions higher. This is the battle for the final step on the podium here at Laguna Seca. Peter Jones 3/10 away from Bobby Simmons. He's been fairly close all race, unless he's just trying to pressure the mistake or wait and see what strategy call either of them make. And if you were Bobby Simmons and you had someone behind you, I'm sure it's quite tense, but there's no real need to go defensive, and I'm sure we will see that if and when this position changes. Bobby Simmons, he's got a feeling he's not going to put up a fight, let Peter Jones through and say no more about it.
Problem is, Bobby Simmons is a racer, whether it be in the sim or otherwise. He is going to want to hang on to that place. And Peter Jones, it's such a shame. He's had a couple of iffy races, really. Had a very poor Donington Park at the starting round and didn't go that well at Brands Hatch last time out, where he finished in 20th position. But other than that, he's had a 3rd, a 4th and a 6th. So again, it's another one of those seasons where he's had the pace, he just hasn't had the roll of the dice on occasion. So Peter Jones is, not unsurprisingly, finding pace this evening, and is also encountering good luck for room, not the first time this season, but say just hasn't had the same consistency as the man who's trying to hunt down Bobby Simmons. That's another car that is pitted, just making its way out. And that is that Colin Dunn now that has pitted and is making his way back out. It looks as though it may well be, and it's the 38 car. It's Alex Saville, is it? So Alex Saville has pitted and he's back out.
But Colin Dunn, indeed, like you mentioned, has been into the pit lane and has now retaken to the circuit in 11th place, with Jamie Peters-Ennis somewhat 1.7 seconds behind. So definitely something to think about for Colin Dunn. Back to the battle we were looking at prior to this, and that is now Mark Cockerton in front of Nick Creed, as we are closing up on the stage in the race where we see lots more drivers peel their way in towards the pit lane to take their mandatory pit stop and the amounts of fuel of their choosing, of course. They might want to overfuel, underfuel, get it just right. I'm sure that's the goal. And Gary Preble, whereabouts is he? He's red on the timing screen. I heard a car going through the grass and the gravel. I've got a feeling, yeah, he's been off the road. So Gary Preble now down into 9th place, which from the back of the grid is still incredibly impressive in less than half the race. But that's Mark Cockerton and Nick Creed that will work their way through. Onto the brakes, through the final corner goes Gary Preble to tick lap number 12 into the book, heading on to lap number 13. 8.5 seconds now the lead margin between Tom O'Farrell and JJ Hine. And JJ joined the series, like you say, at Brands Hatch. As far as he's concerned, there's nobody else on the circuit at this point. He's just driving around in his own race. He'll just about be able to see Bobby Simmons in his rearview mirror, and he won't be able to see Tom O'Farrell up the road. So it's quite a quiet race for JJ Hine. Not as quiet as it is for Tom O'Farrell.
And not quite as quiet as this for Bobby Simmons by the look of things, as he gets into the back of Peter Jones, as Peter Jones was trying to work his way through. We'd seen the two of them absolutely together with Peter Jones behind, but something happened there, and it looks as though Bobby Simmons has just about hung on to it. And that might be, fair play to Peter Jones, that might be that he deemed he was maybe at fault and allowed Bobby Simmons the place back there, because I thought Peter Jones had the run just after we got to it and we saw that contact, but the order still remains the same between the pair of them. So a scary moment there for our champion-elect Bobby Simmons, and as we've said so many times, Jack, in motorsport, it's not over until you see the checkered flag and the fat lady sings in reality, and for Bobby Simmons that could have had a very different outcome, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the last thing you need. But yeah, I've got to agree with you. It looked like Bobby Simmons, there was a bit of braking going down towards turn 5. So maybe he was trying to let Peter Jones through, but then Peter Jones did the same back. So very respectful racing between the pair of them. They can do that, have the moment, and then go, right, let's crack on with exactly where we left off, get battling once again. But all of that may bring Jack Mace in towards the battle. However, Bobby Simmons, like you say, in towards the pit lane.
Yep, so Bobby Simmons heads in towards the pit lane. Jack Mace will still continue round on his merry way. He's still got the number 53 car of James Black within 0.7 of a second of him. You can see just up the road from those two is Peter Jones now on his merry own, so he can just crack on. If he was being held up by Bobby Simmons, we'll be able to see the true pace now of Peter Jones. But we've also got Mark Cockerton coming in on this lap as well, so another car from inside the top 10 enters the pit lane this time through. So we're seeing a few more tick off that mandatory pit stop, for which they've still got plenty of time in which to do it. Still another 20 minutes before they need to tick it off, and having already completed the pit stop, Bobby Simmons comes out of the pit lane. One thing you do need to do at Laguna Seca, Jack, is be very careful pit lane exit. Turn number 2, the Andretti hairpin on track, is very tight. Coming out of the pit lane, it's even tighter.
Yeah, and it's not exactly the easiest braking zone either, because it's a downhill braking zone on a very skinny pit exit with very few braking markers to see. So you've got to make sure you nail the brakes, get the car slowed down, don't run wide, because if you run wide, you're onto the gravel and then onto the actual race circuit itself. And if there's somebody coming round, that can very quickly go wrong. But nicely negotiated by Bobby Simmons. He retakes to the circuit in 7th place. Here is Jamie Peters-Ennis, who has been into the pit lane. He's currently in 12th place. A flick of oversteer on the exit. The car just got unbalanced while he's trying to work his way past Colin Dunn. Both of these drivers that you see on screen have been into the pit lane. So has Mark Cockerton, I believe, up the road. Yes, he has. So these are all battles for position. It's not just like one of the drivers has and one of the drivers haven't been into the pit lane. The 3 drivers from 10th, 11th and 12th all been into the pit lane. We could see a battle slowly start to develop here as we're just closing up on the halfway mark. Tom O'Farrell 8.6 seconds clear of JJ Hine now. But the action on screen is not really going to get any closer than that, because Jamie Peters-Ennis later on the brakes, almost pushing Colin Dunn in to the corkscrew. Down the hill they go, and once again Jamie Peters-Ennis just falls away.
Yeah, we've seen all season, haven't we, that Jamie Peters-Ennis is either hugely confident or is aggressive on the brakes, depending on which side of the argument you wish to be. Nick Creed also coming into the pit lane this time through, so that's another car that's entered the pit lane, the car number 22. He was inside the top half a dozen or so. We go back to Andrew Greer-Hardy, who gets very, very, very sideways indeed. That's coming out of turn number 10, all through the gravel trap. He had been fighting away with Nathan Down, and having made that mistake, I think Andrew Greer-Hardy opted to do the sensible thing there, coming into the pit lane, because he was probably almost due anyway. Our race leader, Tom O'Farrell, is now nearly 9 seconds up the road from anybody else that we've seen so far. Having been into the pits, I mentioned Nick Creed now is exiting the pit lane. He might just stay inside the top 10, you know, potentially. He's going to feed out directly ahead of Colin Dunn, but right behind Mark Cockerton. So again, these are all cars fighting for position. So Nick Creed, Colin Dunn, Jamie Peters-Ennis, that will be a fight for position. All of those cars having stopped, including the car of Mark Cockerton, the purple car with the red bumpers and the St George's Cross on the roof as well.
Yeah, Mark Cockerton has done everything he needs to do at this point, because as far as he's concerned, he can just drive away. The 3 cars behind there will end up battling. They've all been in the pits, so they are all battles for position. Mark Cockerton in the same boat. He just doesn't need to worry about that battle. He can push forward and make up as much time in clean air as possible, and then just let the cars in front slowly peel their way into the pit lane. Apart from Bobby Simmons, of course, he has already been into the pit lane, so definitely something to look at to see whereabouts Bobby Simmons will retake to the circuit, because himself and Peter Jones were together prior to Bobby Simmons heading in towards the pit lane. Jamie Peters-Ennis has another look, heading down the rahal straight up towards the corkscrew. They will go. Will he be later on the brakes this time? He will be on the outside for the first section, the inside for the second, later on the brakes over the crest. Can he get it slowed down? I'm sure a bit of a lock-up, but a great move around the outside. And that's Jamie Peters-Ennis up into 11th place, Colin Dunn down into 12th.
Yeah, brilliant move that from Jamie Peters-Ennis, to be fair. The outside line heading in towards turn number 8 of the corkscrew. Less than ideal, not an overtaking spot really, but Jamie Peters-Ennis decides otherwise, takes the place, and is already putting daylight between himself and the driver he's just taken it away from. Remember, Jamie did start off the back of the grid, as did Gary Preble, and those are the 2 cars at the very top of this programme suggested we needed to keep an eye on to see what kind of progress that they might make, having not been able to, for whatever reason, set a time over the course of qualifying. So over the start-finish line goes Jamie Peters-Ennis. On the right of your screen, you can see the car behind him looking forwards, Colin Dunn. We go back to full screen, and there now Jamie Peters-Ennis will be fully focused on trying to haul himself from the back of the grid inside the top 10. The leading car that has pitted at the moment is in 6th place, which is Bobby Simmons. Then it's this battle that we're looking at now: Mark Cockerton, Nick Creed, Jamie Peters-Ennis, Colin Dunn. Those are the cars that are 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th of those that have pit stopped, albeit they're 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th overall currently.
Yeah, I had a quick look over as well while we were riding on board with Jamie Peters-Ennis. David Edwards heading out of turn 9, or had found himself on the outside or the inside of the circuit, pardon me, and the car was stranded in the gravel, and he has taken to the pit lane. So unfortunately losing out there is David Edwards back to the pit lane, and that car destined for retirement. Looking forward from Colin Dunn, you can see Jamie Peters-Ennis just up the road, not too far adrift, right to the top of the rev range before we throw the car into turn 6. Is it flat? Yes, it is, as the suspension compresses on the outside, just trying to find grip down the rahal straight up towards the corkscrew once again. Is Colin Dunn going to try the move that Jamie Peters-Ennis did to him a lap ago? No, he isn't. They remain the way they are. Nick Creed, whilst all this is going on, has done exactly what he needs to do and has slowly started to pull away. But into the pit lane, however, JJ Hind, Peter Jones and Jack Mace. James Black remains out on circuit. Keep an eye on Bobby Simmons. Where will he end up?
Yeah, and of course Tom O'Farrell, our race leader, still has yet to pit as well. So yeah, JJ Hind, Peter Jones and Jack Mace from 2nd, 4th and 5th, all diving their way into the pit lane. Here comes Bobby Simmons over the start-finish line, and where is he going to come through compared to those that were sitting behind? There you can go, you can just see Jack Mace in the background of that shot exiting the pit lane. So Bobby Simmons now picking up the places once more, and I think he's going to feed his way into 4th place. So Tom O'Farrell, James Black 1st and 2nd, JJ Hind third at the moment. Bobby Simmons will be fourth, which is more than enough still to secure the championship for him, remember. As long as he finishes inside the top 12, top 13 really, it's going to be difficult for anybody else to overhaul him. There goes the number 25 car. That's Peter Jones. He's running in 7th at the moment. He's got 588, which is the car, I was going to say, Reece Atkins sitting behind him. It looks as though we've got a different driver on board that one for this evening.
Jack Bedding.
Jack Bedding, yeah, you're absolutely right. Have we seen anything of Jack so far this year?
I don't think we have. I was looking through the Brands Hatch results, and yeah, I couldn't see Jack Bedding on that entry list there. So it's nice that even though we are on the final round of the season, we've still got people out there that are eager to join and get involved in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. So potentially, if it happens a season 2, I'm sure we will have a capacity grid once again. There is JJ Hind in the Semperini racing car. It's a great depiction of the actual livery that you see on the Semperini racing EnduroKA. James Black just up the road, still yet to pit, of course, the top 2. One thing to note, of course, Bobby Simmons and Peter Jones, I believe it was, were battling before the pit window. Now Bobby Simmons is quite the way up the road, somewhat 12 seconds ahead of Peter Jones. So I'm not sure what went on there, but a slow stop for Mr. Jones.
Yeah, slower stop, or maybe he just got caught up battling once Bobby Simmons had headed in towards the pit lane. We simply don't know at this stage. But for JJ Hind, he is now hot on the heels of James Black and looking to see whether he can overhaul him. Remember, the car that the number 37 car is hunting down hasn't pitted as yet. James Black has not been in to the pit lane as yet in this race, and neither has Tom O'Farrell, our race leader. We've still got the likes of Gary Preble as yet to pit. Jack Bedding hasn't pitted, and further down through the order, James Wakefield and Nathan Down and Tim Parsons still as yet to pit. Running slightly wide there, though, was JJ Hind as they came out of the turn 2 Andretti hairpin that time. Speeds begin to build again as they flick their way through turn 3 and turn 4. Here is Peter Jones. He sits there in 7th place at the moment. He just needs to see if he can muster anything else up to try and close in onto the coattails of that car there, number 91 Gary Preble, who is following in the footsteps of Jack Mace at the moment, but car ahead of him, Jack Mace, has pitted. Car behind him has pitted, and Gary Preble has yet to pit still as he runs around there inside the top 6.
Yep, so still a few cars, like you say, to dive in towards the pit lane. So more battles that could develop from here. Looking forward from Gary Preble, a great view on board. Through turn 5 we go. Up the hill, it's all about maintaining as much momentum, which Gary Preble did absolutely brilliantly. He'll now be pretty much pushing Jack Mace up the hill. You can hear the little knock between the pair of them, but that is just what you've come to expect in not only the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series, but the actual EnduroKA Series. You do see lots of pushing and bump drafting, and you end up with little rivalries and little camaraderies in the paddock. People you're happy to work with, people you'd rather just fight against. And if you see the leader of the road and you're in 2nd and 3rd, why battle? You can wave around in the cockpit and say, let's go, let's work together. I'm sure you've got actual experience of that, Mark, where you just work with the car, pull yourself in and go, right, thanks for the help, now we're both here, let's have a battle.
You can, yeah, absolutely. You get to understand those cars or those teams that you can work with, and those that maybe you just want to perhaps battle away with. Gary Preble destined for the pit lane at the end of this lap. The other difficult dynamic that we get, not so much in the Sim series, but you get in real life, is that it might be a car with one driver in, and then next time you see that car, they're not doing the same thing, and that's because the driver's changed. You just don't realise it until you see the crash helmet. So you're working with them, and all of a sudden they start fighting with you. You think, hang on, why? Jack Bedding also with that time through, so ticking off a few more pit stops for those cars that haven't as yet pitted. Tom O'Farrell, our race leader, though, and James Black, 1st and 2nd in this race, still as yet to pit. Now, Tom O'Farrell leads by 20 seconds from James Black. There's a further 3.5 seconds back to JJ Hind in 3rd place. I think Tom O'Farrell has done enough, I think, here, Jack, looking at pure pace to get into the pits, do whatever he wants in the pit stop and get back out and still maintain the lead.
Yeah, that's all you need to do, and he's done everything that he can. You think, whilst that is on the road and both drivers are still yet to pit, and I'm expecting JJ Hind, if he remains unhindered, to retake 2nd place, he's still got a lot of work to do in the final, what now is 21 minutes of the race remaining, to close up on what I would say is going to be close to a 10-11 second gap, something like that, and potentially even more depending on how Tom O'Farrell attacks the pit lane. Could be closer to sort of 15 seconds the lead margin, and that's all you can ask from Tom O'Farrell. He's done everything he needs to do at this stage in the race. You can see on the right hand side of your screen there's Colin Dunn, who is in 11th place at the moment. continuing to pressurise Gary Preble for the final spot inside the top 10. Slightly further up the road is Jamie Peters-Ennis, who's on the coattails of Nick Creed, and I think that was Mark Cockerton that was just about there as well. So it's not the battle only for the top 10, it's the battle for a few of the positions within the top 10. That's 8th and 9th. Nick Creed and Jamie Peters-Ennis are close together, but here is Colin Dunn, still pushing hard, using all of the circuit and almost a bit more, throws the car right the way out to the outside to work his way through turn 10. A bit of a compression there, both cars running wide, both drivers pushing as hard as they can, and why not? It's the final round of the season. You can push as hard as you like and have as much fun, and I think that's James Wakefield in towards the pit lane. Yes, it is, so only the top 2 get to pick on.
Yep, so everybody else has either pitted or is in the process of conducting their pit stops, other than the front 2. Of course, for Colin Dunn, this is a critical stage of the race for him. 20 minutes to go. He lies 3rd in the championship standings. So at the moment, he's got one hand on that ARDS licence that will be eligible for the top 3 as prizes in this EnduroKA Winter Sim Sport Series. But he's not having a brilliant run at the moment. He's running down in 11th place, which would only net him 15 championship points. So Colin Dunn stays where he is and gains no more places. He would end up on 114 championship points. I'm not going to do the maths yet though for everybody else. We need to see how everything settles once we've been through those pit stops, and of course we've still got a few minutes in the pit stop window where others that haven't pitted as yet could dive into the pit lane. On the right of your screen, Nick Creed still pushing hard. He is still desperately trying to catch up onto the coattails of Mark Cockerton. That is a battle for 7th and 8th, and Jamie Peters-Ennis is slowly closing in as well, isn't he, at the wheel of the 46 car as he lies there in 9th.
Yeah, so there's still so much to that could possibly change in this race. Colin Dunn, like you say, still in with a shout of getting that fully funded ARDS licence. However, the person he's fighting for it, Jack Mace, up in 5th place. So that is the last thing that he will want. But we still know in the final 18 minutes of this race, anything can happen. This battle has been developing over the previous few laps, I should say. That's Nick Creed, the meat in the sandwich. Mark Cockerton in 7th. Nick Creed sat there in 8th place, and it's Jamie Peters-Ennis in 9th. And Jamie's been on a bit of a charge throughout the race, starting from the back of the grid. On the right hand side of your screen, Peter Jones applying that pressure to Jack Mace. We just mentioned him, saying he was doing well in 5th place and he's pushing for that ARDS licence, but Peter Jones is throwing everything at it, trying to minimise any points advantage that he can get, and you can see the gap now visually. Peter Jones and Bobby Simmons were nose to tail when Bobby Simmons went in towards the pit lane, and now there's 2 or 3 seconds separating them in towards the Andretti hairpin at turn 2. Harder on the brakes as Peter Jones just about gets the car slowed down. Bit of oversteer, scrubbed the speed off, but that's position made up into 5th place for Peter Jones. Jack Mace down into 6th.
Yep, and again for Jack Mace that could be critical, because of course mathematically he's still in for the option of maybe scooping up the championship. All the stars would really have to align for that to happen though, but he is in 4th place in the championship. Only the top 3 get the prize. So again, it's another place lost. It's another championship point lost for Jack Mace. So he's really got to see whether he can regather a bit more momentum and try and close it on Peter Jones once more, because 5th place would of course net him 21 points. It's only 20 points for 6th position.
Yep, so still lots to think about, and Tom O'Farrell has indeed been into the pit lane and a return to the circuit, and he's still in the lead of the race by 6.8 seconds. That just shows how quick Tom O'Farrell is, and that's not 6.8 seconds over the car that will be behind. That's 6.8 seconds to the car that is behind on circuit. That car behind on circuit still has to go into the pit lane. So it will probably work out to be around about 9 or 10 seconds between Tom O'Farrell and JJ Hind once James Black has been in towards the pit lane. The first driver we saw into the pit lane is that man there, Jamie Peters-Ennis, who was late on the brakes, maybe a little bit optimistic as well. And that sends both himself and Nick Creed in towards the gravel trap. And Gary Preble looked pretty much the big winner out of that, I think, as that one. Was it Nick Creed that went into the gravel trap? Yes, it was. Gary Preble sneaks his way up the inside for 8th place. Nick Creed in 9th, and Jamie Peters-Ennis, the big loser out of that one. He went through one position and found himself losing 2, and under pressure from losing another. Colin Dunn all over his tail.
Yeah, I said he'd been sort of very late on the brakes, or very hard on the brakes all season, and that one there was just a bit too late on the brakes. The gap was always going to close, and Jamie Peters-Ennis came off worse and is now coming under pressure from the car that sits behind him, which is Colin Dunn. So we ride on board with Colin Dunn, looking ahead at the number 46 car of Jamie Peters-Ennis, who either way has done a good job starting off the back of the grid to be in 10th place, as has Gary Preble off the back of the grid to be in 8th position. So it's been a good race from the pair of them. Neither of them were in the championship reckoning mathematically coming into this race, so maybe just for fun and to see what they can do, opted to start off the back of the grid. But everybody has now pitted. We have got the final 15 minutes of this race coming up, so we are 3/4 of the way through the race. Tom O'Farrell leading the way and setting fastest lap at the moment. See him on 144 points at the end of the championship season, but with it would see him on 131 points at the end of the championship season. But whilst Bobby Simmons is sitting there in 4th position, he would end up in the championship season on 140, so he would be the champion, subject of course to official confirmation.
Yep, and already, 75% of our way through the race, only 14 minutes. We've been saying it all season. If and potentially when Season 2 happens, can we have 90-minute races every race, please? Just an extra half an hour, because it's not that the series needs it. There's already lots of action, but an extra half an hour's worth of action really can't hurt, because it would be just as saturated as the hour we're getting here this evening. And James Black in towards the pit lane.
Yeah, finally James Black heads in towards the pit lane. He is the last car to stop. He could still have done probably another 2 laps before he would need to come in. After that, the pit window would be closed. So for Tom O'Farrell now, he is enjoying now a very handsome lead. We said it would be around about 9 seconds. I think it will be between himself and Bobby Simmons, who will now reassert himself back up through the order. So, sorry, JJ Hind in 2nd place. He had 9.2 seconds behind. Bobby Simmons there in 3rd place. And we'll see as to whether James Black gets back out onto the track in 4th place, or whether Peter Jones is able to nick him away. So, for Tom O'Farrell, he has done everything he could possibly do in this race, Jack. He qualified at the sharp end. He has set the fastest lap of the race. He has led every lap of the race so far, but it still doesn't quite look at the moment as though that's going to be enough.
No, and I don't want to even put into words any of the possibilities that could happen, but at the moment the top 3 have driven brilliant races. So has everybody else, but Bobby Simmons doing everything he needs to do. Tom O'Farrell doing everything he can and more. If you get a point for maybe every second ahead of 2nd place, it could bring the championship ever closer, because that would be at the moment another 8 points. 8.9 seconds is the gap between Tom O'Farrell and JJ Hind. Here we are looking at Jamie Peters-Ennis, Nick Creed just further up the road, Colin Dunn just sat behind. We saw both Jamie Peters-Ennis and Nick Creed go off the road just a couple of laps ago, and hopefully we don't see a repeat of that one. But even further up the road, you can see Mark Hockerton and Gary Preble. So there's 5 cars. They're dangerously close to being in a battle. They're just not quite there.
Do you want me to do some maths?
Go for it.
Shall I tell you something? Okay, at the moment, Colin Dunn not having a brilliant race, is he? He's in 11th. If he finishes in 11th, 114 points. Jack Mace, he's doing all right, isn't he? He's in 6th place. If he stays there, 114 points. James Black, he's having a really good race. He's in 4th place. If he stays there, 114 points. They are tied, all 3 of them on 114 points, if they stay where they are.
You say if they stay where they are, but we've just seen James Black and Peter Jones sideways in the middle of the road. I think they remained as they were, but that's not just 3 drivers tied on points for the championship. That's 3 drivers tied on points for the final spot in the top 3, I believe. And what are they going to do? Give out 5 ARDS racing licenses? So many things can change. There is Peter Jones just about staying in front of Jack Mace in towards turn 1. Can see James Black will have a very, very busy rear view mirror. Peter Jones is doing what he can to attack and defend all at the same time. Jack Mace is just sort of watching, thinking, well, I've given that a go. It's not quite worked. He's got a bit of time in hand. He can just cool off for a couple of laps and then re-attack the situation. But the last thing he wants is to run out of time. Peter Jones, arguably he's the busiest because he needs to look forward and try and work his way through and past James Black, but then if he does that, he will slow himself down and then make himself vulnerable to the attacks of Jack Mace behind. But looking all the way around the outside in towards turn 5 is Peter Jones. Will he get the later apex, carry the superior momentum up the hill all the way up towards turn 6? Already going defensive is James Black, so he can see that Peter Jones is on their way. on towards the Rahal straight in a few moments time after the quick flick left, side by side through here. Normally it's flat out if you go by yourself, a little lift just to kill off some extra speed, and they're still nose to tail, almost side by side in towards the corkscrew. Jack Mace, I'm sure he's just closing his eyes. He doesn't really want to know what's going on and what could happen. Heading through the corkscrew, over the crest, on the brakes, get the car slowed down a couple of gears, use all the road on the inside. A great cutback from Peter Jones, that will give him the inside very briefly. But back to nose to tail once again. We've still got 10 minutes left.
We've still got 10 minutes left, and we've still got 3 drivers all tied on points for third in the championship. A beep of the horn from Peter Jones as he's desperate to try and feed his way through in ahead of James Black. But James Black, I'm sure he won't be able to do the maths. He'll be way too busy concentrating on what's going on to probably know just how tight it is in terms of the championship at the moment. Peter Jones is a bit of an interloper in all of this, because even if he stays where he is, he'll only end up on 92 points. All the rest are on 114 points. But if I've got the maths right, and of course, subject to official confirmation, because a few of the results have been amended once data and cuts and track cuts and off tracks have been looked into. So any results we'll give you tonight will always be subject to official confirmation when the final results are issued in maybe 24 hours, 48 hours time after the race. Tom O'Farrell won't be worried about any of this. He's just driven off into the distance on this one. And Bobby Simmons has done exactly what a champion ought to do. He's driven with his head all season, really, Bobby Simmons, and in this race in particular. There he is in third position. He is the best part of 7 seconds behind the car ahead of him, JJ Hind, but he's also got 7 seconds ahead of James Black, that's there in fourth place. So he's in no man's land on track at the moment. And when you are in a position to win the championship, Jack, that's what you want, isn't it? Nobody around you to worry about when you're 9 minutes away from seeing the checkered flag and being crowned the inaugural EnduroKA Winter Sim Sports Series champion.
Yeah, but you can't think of a more perfect situation. You got into the position that you needed and more. He's in a podium position. He can't see anybody around, and he can just lap till the end. And there's not too long left, 8.5 minutes just over, until we will see the checkered flag for the final time in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series this season. Tom O'Farrell, dare I say, it almost looks like he's backed off a little bit, but he's still got, 8.6 seconds in hand, so plenty of time. There's no real rush for him. Jack Mace still sat there in 6th place. That's Peter Jones and James Black, you can see just up the road. We saw all 3 drivers nose to tail. This time Jack Mace has dropped away a little bit. He's comfortable sitting where he is. I'm sure if he could do the maths, he might just work it a little bit harder for that extra position. That'll be the last thing he wants to hear. Thinking you've made up a position, you've made up 3rd place, but you're sharing it with 2 others is the last thing you would want after a hard-fought race like this. So I'm sure we will see whether Jack Mace gets back on it and really starts to push forward and try and pick up an extra couple of places, which is definitely a possibility. James Black will be just begging the cars behind, think, no, just leave me to it, I'm happy where I am. I'd like 3rd, but he's a bit too far up the road, and that'll be the last thing he wants. Drive a heroic drive, hard on the defence, doing everything he can to hang on to 4th place, gets out the car and goes, yep, you're 3rd in the championship, but you're sharing it with 2 others.
Well, at the moment, yes, they would. All 3 of them would be tied on points, on 114 points. Again, if I've got the maths right, this is. Maths were never my strong point. Just ask Miss Formby, my old maths teacher, and she'll confirm that. But if I've got the maths right, they'd all be tied on points. But on the count back, Jack Black would be 3rd because he's had a 2nd place, which is a higher position than the other 2 have had. James Black, rather.
Yeah, and of course that is what it all comes down to, is just that count back, and it's. Sure, the race can be won on the road, and potentially the championship can be won on the road here at Laguna Seca. But then if you look back through all of the races and all the results, that position can be swapped around between a couple of drivers. So there's still lots to think about. Your start and your middle point of the season very much have an influence on the end of the season as well. Looking back now from James Black, still in 4th place. And Peter Jones, I'm sure he's comfortable in 5th place. It's a nice haul of points to round out the season. However, an extra couple of points I'm sure won't hurt in towards the corkscrew once again. A wider entry from Peter Jones. Does that give him a better exit? No, James Black seems to be the quicker of the pair through the corkscrew. 6.5 minutes of the race remaining, so not too far. The top 3 very equidistantly spread, almost the top 4 at this point. And we'll have a look back to see what's going on. It looks like Tim Parsons has picked up a position and is now in front of Nathan Down. And here is that battle. This is right the way down towards the tail end of the order. This is the battle for 15th, which shows you no matter where you are on circuit, no matter what position you're in, you're going to end up with a battle.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, isn't it? Yeah, the number 42 car pushing hard there, which is Tim Parsons, under enormous pressure from Nathan Down. Nathan Down trying to jink out from behind on the right-hand side of your screen. Not sure quite whether he's going to do it. On the left-hand side of your screen is James Black, who has very much been in the Dragon's Den. I think it is probably quite an apt term for him, because he's got Peter Jones right behind him.
Yeah, and that was Tim Parsons managed to work his way through the corkscrew. Nathan Down, I'd say he took the straightest line possible through the corkscrew. A bit of oversteer, maybe outbraked himself, decided I don't fancy that apex, let's just carry straight on, and then runs wide on the exit of turn 10 in towards turn 11. He hasn't had a net gain out of that. He's still sat in the position he was. It would, I would imagine, have slowed his lap time down, so I can't see any penalty sort of looming over that one. And the best thing is he's still got 5 minutes to resume that battle and try and get that position made. And that's for 15th place. That shows the joy of the EnduroKA, not only Winter Sim Series, but the actual series as well. No matter where you are, no matter how much experience, if it's your first race or your final race after racing for years, you will have someone to race against. Back to this battle, however, this is James Black still under pressure from Peter Jones. Peter Jones draws himself alongside, will be the outside for the entrance to the corkscrew. He is just about in front. Who is later on the brakes? It looks like James Black. Will he get it slowed down? Yes, he will. No contact between the pair of them, and they remain nose to tail, 4th and 5th.
Yeah, good, close, clean racing between the pair of them. You can see they are bumper to bumper, almost Peter Jones there into the back of James Black, but they are still absolutely rooted together, and the man with the best seat in the house is just behind them, really, falling away all of the time now, Jack Mason. Ideally, he needs to get with them, because if he could overtake Peter Jones, then all of a sudden the maths change in his favour. So it's a 2-car squabble. If we can make it a 3-car squabble and usher up the number 1 car of Jack Mace right onto the coattails of the pair ahead, then the whole dynamic of the championship for that final place, 3rd place on the podium for the overall championship, and that final ards test could all change. Again here, James Black positioning the car on the run down in towards the Andretti hairpin, just to make sure that Peter Jones, if he wants to try and take the place, has to go the long way round. Peter Jones, I think, is going to try and cut back and get a slightly better exit at the double apex left-hander. On the right of your screen, we ride with the roof camera on Peter Jones, who draws himself alongside James Black. He's on the outside line. There's a little bit of contact between the pair of them. James Black gets a little bit sideways. Peter Jones backs out of it as he unloads the tail end of the car that he's been squabbling with. All of this plays into the hands of Jack Mace, who's edging ever closer to this pair ahead. So we do now have pretty much a 3-car squabble for 5th, for 6th and for 7th. And remember, of these 3 cars, 2 of them at the moment are tied on championship points. The one that is not in the reckoning in terms of the top 3 in the championship is the man who's in the middle of the sandwich at the moment, Peter Jones.
Yeah, Peter Jones, he is in the middle of the sandwich, but he's on the outside of James Black in towards turn 6. Great confidence there, just to cut towards the tail end of the car in front. No major contact between the pair of them, forcing the door open. Very little to pick between the pair of them. Peter Jones desperate for the inside and wasn't gifted that space, so James Black will remain in 4th place. Down the corkscrew we go once again. You can see that battle and a bit of contact between the pair of them has brought Jack Mace back into the fold. So it's once again 3 cars all fighting over 4th place. Peter Jones the better run down the hill, hard on the brakes for turn 10, almost contact between the pair of them. Peter Jones, I'm sure, is growing impatient. Only 2 minutes and 15 seconds remaining of the race, and don't ask, I don't know where it's gone either. Much later on the brakes, however, for Peter Jones, tries to get the cutback but parks on the apex. It was James Black. That will slow down both drivers. Jack Mace once again on the tail of the car in front, and we're going to have this lap and 1 more to go, and you can't call this battle. There's still nothing to pick between them. Back to the outside goes Peter Jones.
Yeah, I'm just double checking the maths. Absolutely, I've double checked and triple checked my maths, Miss Squamby, and they are all still on 114 points, subject to official confirmation, assuming there's no penalties post-race going to be issued. Peter Jones gets a good run this time coming out of the hairpin, and he is again on the outside line. So as ever, James Black just making sure he positions the car correctly, but Peter Jones gets the cut back this time, heading out of turn 3 and up towards turn 4. Has he got enough momentum? No, there's still contact between the pair of them. James Black turns across the nose of Peter Jones, which again unsettles his car. Peter Jones will try and keep his foot in, and Jack Mace might be able to mug both of them here with a little bit of luck. Now all of a sudden Peter Jones has the inside line for the next corner, and then there's still a little bit of further contact. Jack Mace trying to get in on the act as well and trying to weave his way past and through and ahead of Peter Jones, but Peter Jones has now taken the place away with a little bit of contact from James Black, and James Black has fallen to the tail end of this little squabble, which means that, you know, all that maths I've just done, Jack, I'm going to have to redo it.
Yeah, you say that, but Peter Jones now under pressure from James Black, and if James Black gets back in front of Peter Jones, that puts your maths back up to date. And Peter Jones, going off the body language of that car, he's desperately trying to defend, and James Black is desperately trying to attack. There goes Tom O'Farrell towards the start-finish line to go on to the final lap of the season in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. On the right-hand side of your screen, swap over to the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the battle we were looking at. Jack Mace has backed off, whether he's just making sure he gets to the end of this race. To the outside goes James Black. Couldn't quite get the move done this time, but he's still got one more lap. A good run out of the final corner, however. Peter Jones on the outside, doing what he can to defend. But James Black, are they side by side? Yes, they are. That will give him the inside for the Andretti hairpin at turn 2. Down the hill they will go, and this might put your maths back up to date, Mark. James Black just about a transponders in front. Who's later on the brake? Peter Jones just very slightly, but he does lose that position. So now back to where we were, 15-20 minutes ago.
Yep, so it's all down to this one. Tom O'Farrell a long way round the lap and ahead of this little squabble that's going on, but this is a squabble we need to keep an eye on, because this could massively affect, subject to official confirmation as ever and checking the maths, who finishes third and picks up that final free odds test that's been put up as a prize by MSVT Racing. What a brilliant way to end the season. We've said it's been close all season, Jack. We've said it's been close pretty much on every lap of every race, and here we are on the final lap of the final race, and we still don't know what's going on.
No, absolutely not. Are we keeping a keen eye on the track map? Tom O'Farrell just heading down through the corkscrew now. Peter Jones now just about back in front of James Black. A great move around the outside, so the maths swap once again. A quick look to the inside there for James Black. Can't quite pick anything between the pair of them. Tom O'Farrell heading through turn 10. There he is towards turn 11, towards the final corner. For the final time, it's been a brilliant performance from himself. Lights to flag victory and a 7.2 second margin at the line. Fastest lap, he's done everything he can. Subject to official confirmation, that will be pole, fastest lap and a win. Maximum points, Tom O'Farrell takes the win here at the final round of the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. JJ Hind will come towards the line to finish in the, for the second time this season, finish in second place, I believe. And then that's Bobby Simmons to round out your podium, who will be the provisional champion, but it's still all go for the final 3 spots outside of the top 3, 4th, 5th and 6th. Peter Jones towards the line will just about grab 4th place provisionally, of course. Then it's James Black, then it's Jack Mace. So 4th, 5th and 6th, great work by those drivers, keeping it on the road. The safety car's enjoying itself by the sounds of that. But Bobby Simmons finishing in 3rd place provisionally, may I remind you, he is the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series champion. I do have to correct myself as well. Apologies, JJ Hind obviously has finished 2nd here, but finished 4th at Brands Hatch. It was Leon Hopp, somebody that we haven't seen out this evening, that finished in 2nd place at Brands Hatch. James Wakefield making use of all of the circuit as he heads towards the checkered flag, and then there's only 3-4 more cars to take the checkered flag mark.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a brilliant race, hasn't it? Tom O'Farrell did everything that he possibly could. He knew that he had to get a good result here at Laguna Seca to stand any chance of lifting the championship title, and ideally he needed a pole to lead as many laps as he could, set the fastest lap and the win. Well, he pretty much did all of that, didn't he? Ticked every box. The only box he's not ticked is to be the champion, because that man there, the purple car with the yellow bumpers, subject to official confirmation, Bobby Simmons is going to be the champion. And what a fitting race we had. It was so close all the way through this season, and what a brilliant squabble that we had for that final spot in the championship. So I need to do some maths just to double check as to exactly what happens, whilst you can run through the results.
Yep, so I'll have a quick look over at the results that we have for you this evening. I'll wait for them just to pop up on our end, and then I'll be able to run you through. So Tom O'Farrell does take the win here at Laguna Seca. A great drive from himself. 7.1 seconds, I think it was, at the line between himself and JJ Hind. Then it was Bobby Simmons to take 3rd place and provisionally, of course, the championship here out to Laguna Seca. Then it was Peter Jones and James Black and Jack Mace. We saw all three of those drivers battling away over the final quarter of the race. Mark Cockerton managed to grab 7th place, followed by Gary Preble from the back of the grid. It was Jamie Peters-Ennis up into 9th place. Nick Creed finished in 10th. Then we get back to Colin Dunn, Jack Bedding, Alex Saville, James Wakefield, Tim Parsons, Nathan Down, Andrew Greer-Hardy and Costa C, finishing 4 laps down, but in 18th place. And I'm sure we will have a few interviews. We'll have a look over to see who we've got. We've got Bobby Simmons, our, we're going to say it, provisional EnduroKA Winter Sim Series champion. I spoke to you before we went out racing this evening, Bobby, and you said top 5 would be nice, but you're fully aware you just need to finish top 12 to be guaranteed, top 13 if Tom O'Farrell didn't get the fastest lap. But he did pretty much the perfect race, pole, fastest lap and a win, led, lights the flag, but you finished in 3rd. That's your, what, 5th podium, 5th podium of the season. By far the most consistent driver, and it's landed you in a pretty good spot.
Yes, hello guys. That was I was just watching the battle behind in my timing order the whole time. I didn't see anything. What was happening?
What wasn't happening? There was cars sideways, cars on 2 wheels, cars making contact, but brilliant, respectful racing, as you'd expect from the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. I'm sure something you'll enjoy watching back. But from your perspective, not only this race, but the entire season, how's it been?
Yeah, it was good. It was a good season. I think definitely the consistency helped me. I think bar the Silverstone round, Tom would have got the title as his wheel turned off right at the start, which means he lost pole and had to start from the back. And then I went on to win that, so I gained 25 points. So he's done well to catch up to where he was. Talking about wheels, I had no force feedback the whole race.
That'll be a challenge. It's not like, yeah, it's not a circuit that you're happy to drive without force feedback. And imagine it's quite important with all of the weight transfer and things like that. And of course, this is the first time, albeit in the simulator, the EnduroKA series has gone across the pond, or has gone pretty much anywhere outside of Europe and the UK. So, how was WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca? I'm sure it was quite busy. You said it feels like a dusty circuit. It's quite slippy. It's simulated quite well. You've just spent an hour tearing around with others on circuit. How was it?
Yeah, it was really good actually. I didn't really get to race much. I had a bit of a fight with Peter where he was much quicker than me because I was losing second to half a second a lap with my issues. So he was right on my back of me. Good battle, and it was really you couldn't really brake and then not have any lockups, and then all the fast corners were just you had to get spot on. So it's a really good track for these cars.
Well, it definitely seemed to work. It was a recipe for some great racing. Mark, would you got any questions for Bobby?
Yeah, absolutely, Bobby. You look at, we always say consistency is what wins championships, and you have had unbelievable consistency so far this season. I know you work as one of the mechanics for Purple Sector Racing. Of course, as the champion, there's an ARDS test up for grabs. You'll be booking that in the diary, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about just getting the money together now, which luckily the KA series is quite cheap for. So we'll see. I really want to get on the grid for Brands at the end of the year, but we'll see what happens.
Having done that race at Brands, Bobby, the weather can vary. It's fair to say it's a couple of weeks earlier than they would usually do it. But when you are on the grid, because we've seen them in EnduroKA with former British Touring Car champions and people that have won Le Mans overall in factory Porsches, how will you feel? The nerves will be jangling a bit more than they will in the sim?
I don't know. I've just read my heart monitor. I've just got up to 160 beats per minute, sat on the grid because I knew I had no force feedback going in, but I couldn't do anything about it. So that would probably just a bit higher, to be fair.
Great stuff. Well, thank you for talking to us, Bobby, and congratulations not only for this evening, but your performances throughout the season, as that has landed you provisional champion of the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series. And I know we had it at the start of the stream, but it's the final race of the season, so we're going to do it again. Anybody you'd like to thank or shout out? Now you are, of course, provisional champion.
Of course, there's everyone at Mathwell. That includes Liam, Rory, James, Rachel, David, and of course Peter. And then we have everyone at Purple Sector for giving me the chance to work on a car, giving me the chance with my job. You've got my mum and dad who are probably downstairs wetting themselves right now at this interview. And Nan, Lelo Linda, I hope you're not crying at this, but I did it. And finally to my girlfriend for just being amazing and supportive at every turn. So thank you, Jess. I love you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Bobby. And fingers crossed, we will see you out on the actual EnduroKA grid very, very soon. And maybe, who knows, maybe the EnduroKA Winter Sim Series or the Summer Sim Series grid even sooner.
Yeah, hopefully so. Thank you to you guys as well, and to Toby for putting on the series.
Cheers, Bobby. Thank you. That's Bobby Simmons there. Great stuff from Bobby. Such a nice guy. We've got a couple of others that we'd like to bring in. I think somebody that we haven't spoken to.
We'll bring in JJ Hind. I think your mute's still on. Your mic is on mute. There we go. So let's grab a quick word with JJ Hind, who we saw out in the EnduroKA Winter Sim Sports Series for the first time at Brands Hatch, where he finished just off the podium. Considering we've not seen a lot of you, JJ, you must be really, really pleased with the pace in the Semprini car.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. Keeping up with like championship contenders, I'm really happy with the pace.
Only 2 races in, but a 4th and a 2nd. Is it frustration that you weren't available or couldn't commit to the full season? Otherwise, surely you'd have been right in the championship reckoning.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating that I didn't do the whole championship, but if they do another one in the future, I will definitely do the whole season.
And of course, Semprini Racing, not just racing in EnduroKA, we see them out in Track Day Trophy in the Hondas, but they've got the main team and the junior team as well. That's something we're going to see you behind the wheel of the real car moving forward in the 2023 championship season.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, but no confirmation as yet. Then I guess.
Yeah.
Well, you need to have a word with David, maybe see if he can slot you in the car somewhere. Jack, any questions from you?
Yeah, just one really. We've seen drivers develop throughout the season from round 1 to this evening. They've constantly been improving and getting to grips with the car and the circuit and everybody else that they may be fighting with. But yourself, you got in the car and you knew exactly where you needed to put that car and exactly what pace you needed to extract. And surely that's a good vote of confidence, because obviously, like you say, you expressed an interest in getting behind the wheel of an actual KA in this season, or potentially another season of another sim series. But what was it that drew you to the EnduroKA?
Well, a couple of people that I know race like in the real life EnduroKA series, so that's what really pulled me towards it, really.
Well, yeah, I can imagine they can't stop talking about it, because it's an amazing car to drive, and it looked like it was good fun this evening as well. But before we let you go, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
I'd like to thank my mum for watching.
Terrific.
Really.
No, don't worry. Terrific. I'm sure she's more than proud with a second place here at Laguna Seca. But thank you for coming in, JJ, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. JJ Hind there, a man of few words, but communicates very well. And Tom O'Farrell, welcome to the commentary box. Race winner here this evening. You did everything you could. Pole, fastest lap, a win. I think you led lights to flag as well. Congratulations, first of all. That's no mean feat. But how did you find it?
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the race. Yeah, it was not really much happened, to be honest, from my point of view. Yeah, I was just saying to Bobby in the waiting room that it was. I basically got in my head, and about 30 odd minutes in, I noticed everyone was 22 seconds behind me, and I went, "Oh, perhaps I should make a pit stop then." So I pitted and ended up with a like 5 or 6 second gap when I came out, and I was like, "How's on earth that happened?" I was expecting to come out behind people, but no. I'm just happy with that, to be honest.
Well, whatever you did, it worked. And yeah, obviously that's tonight here at Laguna Seca. But if you could, I'm sure we could sit here all night and talk about it. But if you could sum up your entire season, the good, the bad, everything in between, and just the series in general, how would you do it?
The series has been fantastic. hats off to Gridfinder, Toby Owen, everyone that's been involved, Mark from Positive Perception, everyone. It's just been fantastic. I mean, yeah, Bobby's been fantastic. The fact he's not put a foot wrong, really. He's just continuously scored points, and coming into this race, he just needed to score 5 points, and that was it done. So it's like, brilliant. I want to go again. Can we start again next week?
I'm sure if we do that, we'd need longer races, or do them every single week. I'm sure there'd be a few takers for that one. Mark, anything from yourself?
Yeah, a couple from me, Tom. First of all, congratulations. But the first question, really, you should only ever look forwards in motorsport, not look backwards. But just briefly, is it Silverstone, that result at Silverstone, where the championship started to get away from you, but you were always playing catch up thereafter, do you think?
Yes. Put simply, yes. Silverstone was my own stupidity. I disconnected off the server as we normally do, but I turned my wheel off and I forgot to turn it back on when loading back into the server. And as you say, I was playing catch up from then on. I meant to be pole, ended up 30 seconds behind, starting from the pit lane that race. So the fact I ended up 16th or something, I'm quite happy with in that. And the fact I've ended up with a second in the championship, I mean, over the moon with that. Absolutely over the moon.
Which brings me beautifully onto my second question, because as a former Brands Hatch marshal and someone that's done karting in the past, your prize, of course, will be to pick up an ARDS test, something I'm guessing you'll be looking forward to and hopefully able to use moving forwards.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the plan. Obviously, you need to get some more sponsors on board. Obviously, you've got 2F Media Productions, Visit Island Limited, and Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing at the moment on board. But yeah, budget is obviously always a big thing. So yeah, we'll just have to see.
Well, you've already done the shout-outs there as well, and you mentioned Visit Islay. One of the things I shall be doing is having a glass of Ardbeg to celebrate what's been a brilliant season. It has just been a great year, hasn't it? You look at what has been done. You mentioned Toby Owen, you mentioned Gridfinder and Positive Perception, but with the likes of Burton Power and MSV Racing and Turn 7, they've all been brilliant. It has been, as I'm sure you know, a very well put together broadcast, because you have experience in that area as well, Tom.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's what 2F Media Productions does. We're broadcasting at the moment for Perfect Acceleration Sim Racing at the moment with the Junior Saloon Car Championship. So yeah, it's been very well put together. Pretty happy with everything. As soon as we finish here, I'm gonna grab an Ardbeg myself, probably a box of Jaffa cakes, and watch the live stream back, because Mum, Dad, Emma, Toby, Daisy, everyone that was watching sent me a message and said how great it was. So yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much, Tom. It's been great to have you not only here this evening, but throughout the entire season. It's been a very interesting, thrilling, exciting, any other adjective you'd like to throw at it, watch. It's been a pleasure to have you, and hopefully we don't only see you again in the EnduroKA Sim series, but hopefully now you've got that fully funded ARDS license, we see you out on track for real as well very soon. Perfect.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, Tom.
No worries at all. It looks as though we've got somebody else, because clearly they've been doing the maths in the background and have worked out who's finished third in the championship, and he's joining us in the commentary box, because if I've got the maths right now, Colin Dunn finished on 114 points, as did Jack Mace, who was on 114 points, and with that overtake at the final few laps, James Black finished on 113. So two drivers tied on points, but Jack Mace had a third overall. So on the count back, Jack, that's why you're joining us in the commentary booth. I'm guessing you're third in the championship, subject to official confirmation. Well done.
Okay, right. The original plan. So after Brands, I had, in all honesty, Brands was rough. I put way too much pressure on myself. I made some stupid mistakes, and then I'm 5 points behind coming into this, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'll go in there. I hope for a miracle, because of course Colin, who's been just ludicrously consistent all season, like I think he hasn't finished below 7th until now. I just assumed that there was no way I was going to bridge that gap. So I was hoping I'd be here, but I was hoping I'd be on the podium saying, "Oh, well done." I'm shaking. I'm bewildered that has happened.
Did you realise at the time that you were busy squabbling with James Black, and of course we'd also got in there Peter Jones, did you realise that yourself and James Black were tied on points, and further back in 11th, Colin Dunn was on exactly the same points as you guys as well?
I was sadly fully aware. I from about 20 minutes in, when I saw Colin having trouble, to be honest, like a few seconds in at turn 1, Colin and James had that coming together, and I thought, well, that might be a penalty. So that's already shaken that one up, and then I just had to laser focus on James. He was catching me. I just dove into the pits after a mistake on the penultimate corner, and I thought, okay, let's just see where we are. And then I see Peter having a kerfuffle in the pit lane himself, and then as we were all rejoining, Peter's just behind me. I'll be honest, I wasn't in the mindset to fight. I just let him through. I thought, no, you deal with that one, mate. And then I see Peter and James, and I'm like, guys, please, I beg, give me something. And it was just enough on the line. Well, I was right place, right time, kind of deal.
Mr. Werrell Jr.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. You've shown you've had the pace all season, and you've fought at the top, and you've fought your way through. It's been incredibly close, no matter where we look throughout the entire season. What is the one thing that stood out for you? Because it's one of those things that you can't really just pick out one. But I'm going to ask. You have to just pick out one, because it's not just the range of experience or the range of pace or the track choice or the directing. Everything's been spot on. There's got to be one standout thing for you.
I'm just thrilled Snetterton didn't completely ruin it for me. Because that's the race I look back on and I thought, oh, I was bad there. I was way off the pace at Snet, and I was borderline writing my eulogy to the guys in the office on Monday, being like, well, if only I hadn't crashed at Silverstone, if only I was any good at Snet. But everything just seemed to come together, Alton Park especially. You have to, some people say that at times you make your own luck. I have to admit where I've been lucky, being able to get into that position in Alton to get on the podium. And, this result, 6th place, is the happiest I've ever been over a 6th place, purely on merit. There was a very cathartic scream once I realised what the standings were, and where I was in relation. This is probably going to be the highlight. I don't know how much of the broadcast was caught afterwards, but my wheel took a slight battering. It's yeah. No,
you will feature heavily in the highlights, I would imagine, Jack.
I'm hoping it's just what I'm honestly expecting is I'm going to be featuring as just the car in the background, just lurking while the fights are going on ahead of me. Because that's how it felt, but it was just that was all I needed.
And finally, before I ask if you've got some shout-outs as well, before we let you go, again, the top 3 in the championship, and what this series is about, what EnduroKA is about, is getting people into motor racing. And I think, having spoken to the top 2 in the championship, and yourself, you've got karting experience, but you've never raced a car. And again, you are now going to be an ARDS licence winner.
Well, I did buy a Ford car after Alton, so, there was the plan to get into it anyway, but this is one major hurdle out of the way. I bought the Ford car. Now it's getting that thing together over the course of the year. Hopefully this will give me an opportunity to... I'm really hopeful now that this is going to push me forward to actually get out there for real in the EnduroKA series. I mean, I'm really hoping to get the funds together to race at Brands, and failing that, I'm building my own car anyway. So
before we let you go, any final shout outs?
Yeah, everyone on the Requiem Discord has been cheering me on in the streams the whole time. I'm looking forward to watching that one back and seeing what everyone had to say. The guys back at the office for giving me some genuinely really good support. The EnduroKA guys for putting this one on as well. Yeah, this whole series has been, it's easy to say when I'm in this position, but it's been one of my favourite experiences in sim racing. I said that back at Alton. I stand by that. We've had some phenomenal racing all season long, and I really hope we get the opportunity to do this again in a year's time for the next winter break.
Well, thanks a lot, Jack. Very well done, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Cheers.
So that's it, Jack. The season is done. We've crowned our champions.
Yeah, it's a shame. Quite a sad moment, really, isn't it? It's been a great season, action-packed. The races go far too quickly. Everyone agrees. We need maybe not quite the 12 hours of Snetterton. Maybe 90 minutes is just about right. But it needs to happen again. That's my point. It's been a brilliant season. Everybody that's been in the chat and everybody that's helped us out on social media, deciding where we go for the final round of the season. But of course, Toby Owen, Mark Raddenbury, Daniel, wow, our director, how you kept up throughout the entire season, I will never know. All of the other commentators that have been in as well, of course, and the drivers. We wouldn't be able to do it without them. But of course, the sponsors as well. We've got some great sponsors on board, and simply without them, we wouldn't be able to do it. Positive Perception, Burton Power, everybody else. But here you go. You can see them now. Positive Perception have made some beautiful liveries. All the liveries you've seen all season have been made by Positive Perception, and they've got a special on at the moment as well if it's for an EnduroKA. Turn 7, of course, we've got them on board. I think that was since Snetterton. Great race wear. They do a 10% competitor discount. They're also catering specialists. They do team wear as well. So Turn 7, it's great to have them on board. Of course, Grid Finder, who have been one of the title sponsors, Burton Power as well, and MSVT for allowing us to borrow not only their series and drag it into the simulator, but their YouTube channel as well. But it's been a brilliant season, and I don't think you can sort of really express how good it's been from start to end.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hadn't done a lot of esports commentary until lockdown, and I think everybody ended up having to do that during lockdown. But it's been, and again, hand on heart, I say this, it's been my favourite sim series that I've covered. And of course, if you are watching, the real series gets underway very shortly indeed. Registrations are already open for the 2023 EnduroKA series. That kicks off in just a few weeks' time with a 5-hour race. For the first time ever, the cars will go to Silverstone and the National Circuit on the 16th of April. So we're looking forward to that one, Jack, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be no different, if anything, even closer in real life. I can't wait to see it and cover it throughout this season in real life. I get the pleasure to do that, I think, with you as well. But thank you, everybody that's played a part in the series. Thank you, everybody that's been watching along from home. It's been our absolute pleasure. Hopefully we get to see you very, very soon for some actual EnduroKA action as well. But from myself, Jack Werrell, Mark Werrell, and Daniel in the director's booth, we will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.